Healthy relationships are not built by people who never hurt each other. They are built by people who know how to return after hurt. They are built by people who can face discomfort without running from the truth. They are built by people who understand that love is not only a feeling, it is also a practice of listening, a practice of repair, practice of responsibility, a practice of patience, practice of becoming more honest, more aware, and more emotionally present. This is the final episode of the psychology of relationship, and after everything we have explored: communication, trust, childhood patterns, emotional distance, unspoken expectations, conflict, and emotional dependency, we now come to one important question: how are healthy relationships rebuilt? Because every meaningful relationship will face moments of strain. There will be misunderstanding. There will be disappointment. There will be emotional distance. There will be conflict. There will be times when someone speaks poorly, withdraws, assumes, reacts, forgets, or fails to understand. The presence of difficulty does not automatically mean a relationship is unhealthy. What matters is whether the relationship has the capacity to repair. Repair is the bridge between pain and renewed connection. Without repair, hurt becomes history. History becomes resentment. Resentment becomes distance, and distance eventually becomes emotional separation. But with repair, a painful moment can become a turning point, not because the pain never mattered, but because both people cared enough to learn from it. The first step in rebuilding a healthy relationship is truth, not harsh truth, not careless truth, not truth used as a weapon, but honest truth. A relationship cannot be rebuilt around pretending. It cannot be rebuilt around let's just move on when something important remains unresolved. It cannot be rebuilt around silence that looks peaceful but feels heavy. To rebuild, people must be willing to name what happened, what hurt, what changed, what was avoided, what pattern kept repeating, what did each person need that was not understood. Truth creates the ground where repair can begin. Without truth, people may continue the relationship, but they do not truly rebuild it. They simply place routine over the wound, and eventually the wound speaks again, sometimes through anger, sometimes through withdrawal, sometimes through distrust, sometimes through emotional numbness. This is why honest conversation matters, not to reopen pain endlessly, but to understand it clearly enough that the same pattern does not keep repeating. The second step is responsibility. Responsibility is different from blame. Blame says, "This is all your fault." Responsibility says, "What part belongs to me?" In healthy rebuilding, each person must be willing to examine their own contribution. Where did I withdraw? Where did I speak harshly? Where did I dismiss your feelings? Where did I expect you to know what I never said? Where did I defend myself instead of listening? Where did I fail to repair when repair was needed? This kind of self-examination is not easy. It requires humility. It requires emotional maturity. It requires the courage to see ourselves without collapsing into shame. Some people cannot rebuild relationships because they cannot take responsibility without feeling destroyed. The moment they hear that they caused pain, they defend, explain, minimize, or attack. But responsibility is not the same as saying, "I am a terrible person." It is saying, "My behavior had an impact, and I'm willing to understand it." That willingness changes everything, because relationships become safer when people know that pain will not be dismissed. The third step is listening. Real listening is one of the most powerful repair tools, but it is also one of the hardest. Many people listen only long enough to respond. They listen for what they disagree with. They listen for how to defend themselves. They listen for the part they can correct. But rebuilding requires a deeper kind of listening. It asks, what was this like for you? What did my behavior mean to you? What did you need from me in that moment? What did I not understand? What are you afraid will happen again? These questions matter because repair is not only about explaining intention. Intention matters, but impact matters too. A person may say, I did not mean to hurt you. That may be true, but it is not the end of the conversation. A mature response continues. But I want to understand how it affected you. This is where safety begins to return, because people do not heal only when someone explains. They heal when someone cares enough to understand. The fourth step is changed behavior. This is where many relationships either rebuild or remain stuck. Words can open the door, but behavior determines whether trust returns. An apology without change becomes another disappointment. Promise without follow-through becomes another reason not to trust. A conversation without action becomes another cycle. If emotional distance damaged the relationship, rebuilding requires presence. If dishonesty damaged the relationship, rebuilding requires truth. If criticism damaged the relationship, rebuilding requires respect. If neglect damaged the relationship, rebuilding requires attention. If conflict damaged the relationship, rebuilding requires new ways of disagreeing. Repair must become visible, not perfect, visible. The other person must be able to see that something is changing. This does not happen overnight. Healthy rebuilding takes repetition, small moments of consistency, small moments of listening, small moments of choosing differently, small moments where someone could repeat the old pattern but does not. Over time, these small moments create new evidence, and trust begins to breathe again. This is the natural midpoint of the episode. Healthy relationships are rebuilt not through one emotional conversation, but through repeated emotional reliability. Reliability says, you can trust that I will not disappear every time things get hard. You can trust that I will listen when something matters. You can trust that I will not use your vulnerability against you. You can trust that I will try to repair when I cause harm. You can trust that my growth is not just a temporary performance. This kind of reliability is deeply healing because many people are not looking for perfection. They are looking for consistency. They want to know the relationship is not always one misunderstanding away from collapse. They want to know honesty will not be punished. They want to know their needs will not be mocked. They want to know that when something breaks, both people will care enough to mend it. Another important part of rebuilding is emotional safety. Emotional safety does not mean no one ever feels uncomfortable. It does not mean every conversation is easy. It does not mean people avoid all hard truths. Emotional safety means the relationship has enough respect for difficult truth to be spoken without emotional destruction. It means people can disagree without humiliation. It means someone can say, I am hurt, without being mocked. It means someone can say, I need something to change, without being punished. It means people do not have to hide their inner world to keep the peace. Without emotional safety, honesty disappears. And when honesty disappears, closeness becomes fragile. This is why rebuilding a relationship requires a new emotional climate. Not just new words, a new climate. A climate where both people know we can talk about hard things. We can pause when emotions rise. We can return after conflict. We can apologize without losing dignity. We can set boundaries without cruelty. We can be honest without becoming enemies. This kind of relationship does not happen by accident. It is practiced again and again. Another part of rebuilding is forgiveness, but forgiveness is often misunderstood. Forgiveness does not always mean immediate trust. It does not always mean full access is restored. It does not always mean the relationship returns to what it was. Sometimes forgiveness is part of rebuilding. Sometimes forgiveness is part of release. But in a relationship that is being rebuilt, forgiveness cannot be demanded. It cannot be rushed. It cannot be used to silence the person who was hurt. Real forgiveness, if it comes, grows in the presence of truth, responsibility, change, and safety. The person who caused harm must understand that forgiveness is not a shortcut around accountability, and the person who was hurt must also decide whether they are willing to participate in rebuilding if the other person is truly changing. This is not simple. Rebuilding requires both honesty and discernment, because some relationships can heal and some relationships cannot. A relationship can be rebuilt when both people are willing to take responsibility, when both people can listen, when both people care about repair, when both people want to become healthier, not just more comfortable. But a relationship cannot be rebuilt by one person alone. One person cannot communicate for two. One person cannot repair for two. One person cannot carry all the emotional responsibility and call it love. If only one person is growing, apologizing, adjusting, listening, and trying, the relationship may continue, but it is not being rebuilt equally. Healthy rebuilding requires mutual participation, not identical effort in every moment, but shared willingness, shared care, shared responsibility. This is one of the most important lessons of the whole series. Love is not enough without maturity. Love may create the desire to stay, but maturity creates the ability to grow. Love may create attachment, but maturity creates safety. Love may bring people together, but maturity teaches them how to remain connected when life becomes difficult. So what does a rebuilt relationship look like? It does not look perfect. It looks more honest. It looks like two people who can say what they mean sooner. It looks like fewer hidden expectations. It looks like conflict that leads to understanding instead of emotional damage. It looks like trust rebuilt through consistency. It looks like boundaries respected instead of resented. It looks like vulnerability handled with care. It looks like two people becoming less reactive and more aware. It looks like repair happening before distance becomes permanent. And perhaps most importantly, it looks like peace that is not based on avoidance. Some relationships seem peaceful because no one is telling the truth. But healthy peace is different. Healthy peace comes when truth has room to breathe, when people do not have to perform, when silence is comfortable, not fearful, when closeness feels safe, not forced, when love feels steady, not constantly uncertain. That kind of peace is built slowly, through choices, through conversations, through repair, through becoming the kind of person who can be trusted with another human being's inner life. As we close this final episode, remember this: healthy relationships are not built by perfect people. They are built by people who are willing to become conscious, people who are willing to see their patterns, people who are willing to speak honestly, people who are willing to listen, people who are willing to repair, people who are willing to stop using fear, silence, blame, or control as substitutes for maturity. This series began with a simple question: why do relationships feel so difficult today? And now, after everything we have explored, the answer is clearer. Relationships are difficult because they ask us to bring our whole selves into contact with another person's whole self. Our fears, our wounds, our expectations, our habits, our need for love, our fear of rejection, our longing to be understood, our struggle to trust, our hope that someone will stay. Relationships reveal us, but that is also why they can transform us. Not every relationship is meant to last. Not every relationship can be rebuilt. Not every connection is healthy enough to continue, but every relationship can teach us something if we are willing to look honestly. It can teach us how we communicate, how we protect ourselves, how we trust, how we handle conflict, how we love, how we lose ourselves, how we return to ourselves. And perhaps the goal is not to find a relationship where nothing difficult ever happens. Perhaps the goal is to become the kind of person who can meet difficulty with more truth, more wisdom, more responsibility, and more care. Because healthy love is not the absence of struggle, it is the presence of maturity inside the struggle. Thank you for walking through this series with me. If this video gave you something to reflect on, take a moment to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. And before you leave, ask yourself this final question. What kind of person am I becoming in the relationships that matter most?